Hey there. This is going to be a mini webinar answering a couple different questions that I've been getting from clients recently that are really good questions because there's so many different things out there, especially when you get in the biofeedback, neurofeedback world, that can get kind of confusing to people. Different types of protocols, Z-score training, coherence training, Ottmer training, Thompson's, Luber, Peniston protocols, all these different things. And just within the last 48 hours, I think I've had 3 different people ask me, well, what is it that you do? Like, which protocol do you do? And there are a few different answers to that. It is a protocol that is not particularly in one particular domain. Mainly because it's really the Royer Neuroscience Protocol. It is one that takes the best from a lot of different areas, also finds some weaknesses in other areas that we don't want to use, and brings it all together in a comprehensive overview that's really based on 25 years of working in the area of neuroscience. Also, I approach this with many years in the clinical arena, especially in neuropsych. So the first half of my career was primarily neuropsychological testing, traditional psychological testing in hospital settings for people with neurological disorders, behavioral disorders, brain injury. And so when I'm looking at working with an individual, I'm not just looking at one particular technique that applies to a lot of different people, but instead I'm looking at each individual and what are the things that they need. I think of right now, client database that I'm working with, there's a lot of that are working on breathing. There's some that are working on heart rate variability. There's some that are working on visual tracking for performance or academic issues. There's some we're looking at sleep issues and working on sleep hygiene. There's some that we're doing traditional therapy with. But rather than one size fits everybody, my way of looking at people, because after studying close to 60,000 brains, I see that every brain is different, that one protocol always doesn't fit or may not be the first step that you want to take. A lot of these protocols do help, but it's just what is your first step. So the way that I approach it is, again, based off of years and years of experience and a lot of success in this area, is rather than looking at a particular technique, one is I look at the individual and how they're wired. So we might be looking at very detailed neuropsychological testing, psychological testing, hormone analysis, sleep architecture, EEG analysis, and finding out that particular wiring, or what I call the brain print of that individual, and then working with that in a particular way where we're addressing the most significant needs first, and then addressing maybe more the secondary. And those are different because everybody's different. I mean, we can have 20 people who are named Joe, right? But every one of those Joes are completely unique, and there will never be any 2 people that are exactly alike. And that comes from a philosophy of, instead of putting everybody in one box, we need to see each individually. But when we approach the human brain and body, rather than look at a technique, we need to see how the human brain and body works. And it's always working off of electrical current, okay? That's what makes it work. So how is this electricity being made, and how is it being managed? Okay, very important. What are we doing to make it? Food, water, super important, but even more important than those would be sleep. And then the number one way that we make electrical current is oxygen. 90% of the energy we make is from oxygen. So almost everybody does need to start with some form of breathing training, with some heart rate variability training after that, and then moving on to neurofeedback with maybe specific protocols. But how we make those decisions is how is the person's brain managing electrical current? And the way it does that is through something called the autonomic nervous system. And this autonomic nervous system acts as an umbrella over top of all of our systems, our respiratory, cardiovascular, endocrine, all those systems. The autonomic nervous system is telling them what to do. And what it's telling them is to either run really fast if they need to, or to run really slow, or to run someplace in the middle. Fast is referred to as sympathetic, slow is parasympathetic. Some of this should be reviewed for some of you guys out there. And the autonomic nervous system is making those decisions. So when I look at a particular technique like biofeedback, neurofeedback, acupuncture, medicine to create a chemical change, what I'm looking at in all of those things is no matter what they are, they're trying to change the speed of the electrical current, whether it's through a ligand-gated change, which is a chemical change, or whether it's through a voltage-gated change, which can be something that's learned, like neurofeedback, biofeedback, those kind of things. And so what I always say, and I've said it for years, is we're going to use the techniques that provide the most efficacy at moving the autonomic nervous system. If there's another tool out there that's better than EEG feedback, we're going to be all over that. Right now, EEG feedback, after looking at this for a very long period of time, is the most efficient and the most cost-effective way to move the autonomic nervous system in a real quantifiable way. And that kind of brings us to the whole, what technique to use. I'm a very data-driven person working in hospital settings for a long period of time. You need data to be able to present to a physician. What is this person's intellectual functioning? How extreme is their disability? What level is their suicidal ideation? What level is the anxiety they're experiencing? And you need to be able to measure these things. And so my history is very quantifiable. So I am definitely drawn towards more quantifiable measures. And so originally I was trained by the Thompsons, which would kind of come out of the tree of Luber, where you're looking at specific ratios of functioning. Nowadays, that would probably align more with Z-score training. I have some different philosophies about how we address Z-score training and where it is that we're pushing different aspects of the EEG. And that's really based off of the database that I've gathered over the last 12 to 15 years that lets me be able to use really quantifiable numbers. I want to have my clients understand in a percentile range, this is exactly where you fall in your focus. This is where you fall in your anxiety. This is where you are in your attention. This is where you are in your memory functioning. And then as we're doing biofeedback, neurofeedback, HRV training, whatever it is we're doing, supplements, maybe helping their doctor with medicine, we're able to quantifiably measure that shift. So I can say in 20 sessions, your attention improved 52 percentile points, and we can be very quantifiable with that. So I use more of a quantifiable approach that's looking at exact ratios, exact frequencies, and isn't just a symptom checklist of are you feeling a little bit better, but we're very quantifiable in that. Hopefully that's been a good overview for you of how we're approaching this. Other techniques that we use, such as heart rate variability training, biofeedback in relation to skin temperature, skin conductance, respiratory feedback, are other ways that we go about changing the autonomic nervous system. Even things like light therapy, which look at blue light and how that impacts the circadian rhythm. These are all things that come in to address the autonomic nervous system and whatever it takes to help that person get stronger and to be able to measure it in a quantifiable way. Those are the approaches that we use. Okay, hopefully that answered some questions for you out there.